everybody, Phil Standard, GunClassUtah.com. Hey, I've got another one for you. Received a phone call Monday earlier this week. Gentleman said that he was court ordered to attend a gun safety class, and he was just trying to get some information on that. And I asked him, I said, well, tell me what happened. I need to know what happened so I can know what class to prescribe you. And so he was saying that he purchased a new handgun. He went home. He lives in an apartment complex. He said he read the owner's manual, and then he wanted to practice loading the gun. And so what he did was he took some real bullets to load his gun. And I'll just kind of show you what he did. To make a weapon safe, I've got a gun in a holster here for the demonstration. The proper way to do that is you're going to pull that gun out of the holster. And with that in a safe direction, you're going to remove the magazine. It's empty magazine. And then you're going to cant that gun to the right. This camera is forward facing, so it's on the video it's going to show left, but it actually is canted to the right. And then you're going to come over the top and you're going to rack that slide back 3 times. I did not see a round come out, but you have to physically inspect that chamber with your eyes. So if you lock that slide back and you look down inside of that chamber, you can see that the gun is clear. And if I angle that right, you should be able to see inside of that chamber. It's a little bit dark. But you're looking right side, right inside of that chamber, right there. So the gun is clear. I'm going to drop a snap cap in here to show you what this looks like with a loaded chamber. That's where the bullet in the chamber goes, if there was one in there. So the gun is clear. So what he did was he bought some ammunition. He bought some ammunition for his gun at the gun range. And that was the first mistake he made. You never practice loading a gun with live ammunition in your house or apartment or wherever you live. If it's not at a gun range, you should not be using real rounds. These are snap caps. See that plastic primer on there? And the orange tip bullets, some of them are different colors. These are $15 for a 10-pack of these, okay? So they're very inexpensive. They're very useful in loading. So he was loading his magazine with real bullets, which he shouldn't have done. I'll just put 5 in here. So to properly load a gun, you want to take that magazine and index it, and you want to put it in that magazine well, and you want to give it a good tap. Make sure it's seated in there properly. Not doing that will cause a malfunction. And the easiest way to load is just to put your hand on the slide, the hard part, and put your fingers on the other side. So you've got all this contact on the slide, and you got to pull that slide all the way to the rear. And you got to let that recoil rod and spring inside do its work to chamber that round properly forward. So you're going to pull it back, and you're going to let that drop like a slingshot. So this is what he did. He had it loaded. He's like, oh, okay, so that's how you do it. So then he wanted to dry fire the gun. So he takes the magazine out, and then he goes to dry fire the gun. Boom. Bullet went through the wall in his apartment into a neighboring apartment. And so he had to go down to the apartment manager's office and tell them that he had an accidental discharge and to go check on the occupants in the apartment. They did that. The apartment there was nobody home at the time. The apartment manager told him no problem. But what they did not tell him was if they actually filed a report with the police for insurance purposes, is what they said. So the police come knock on this guy's door and give him a citation for unlawful discharge of a firearm in city limits. So when he went to court, the judge sentenced him as part of the sentence, it was to pay a $500 fine and attend a gun safety class. And he was given instruction by the judge that he would need to be issued a certificate that shows competency with a firearm. And so I recommended that he take an NRA basic pistol course, which is typically what I do. That's an 8-hour pistol course where they learn safe gun handling. They have to demonstrate how to handle a gun, how to properly load and unload, and things like that. And they go to the range and they shoot to qualify that they can shoot safely and with proficiency. Usually that will be enough for people that are sentenced from the courts. Occasionally I have some people that cannot demonstrate safe handling, and so we have to spend additional time, but you know, that's a rare case, and usually that will fix the problem. So the 4 rules of gun safety were well thought out, and if they're followed, you will never have a problem with an accidental discharge. All right, I'm going to make the gun safe. I just want to verify that it's clear, which it is. Number 1 rule, the muzzle of the gun is always pointed in a safe direction. You never want to flag somebody, and flagging means that you're inadvertently pointing that gun at somebody, intentionally or unintentionally, that's an unsafe direction. So you just want to be mindful of where that muzzle is being pointed. We see this typically in pistol classes. We do what we call a pistol exchanging exercise, and we will hand the student the gun after it's been cleared. We will, lock that slide, inspect that chamber, and once it's done, we'll take this hand that isn't doing anything. I'm holding the gun in my trigger hand, the one that fires. And then you take that support hand and you put it over the trigger like that. And then I pull out my trigger hand and I hand it to the student like this, okay? And you want to make sure that your hand is down below that ejection port when you hand it to them. In the event that that slide were to drop forward, if your hand's in there, it's going to pinch and it's going to hurt. So you want that down, but also to where that trigger's covered. And then you hand it to the student like that, and then the student grabs it, and then they do that, and then they hand it to the next. And if we got a group of 4 students or whatever, 10 students, we'll get in a little circle, and we will call out that student in a nice way, just being critical. Hey, where's your muzzle pointed? And they'll often, first time doing this, they'll point it at their leg, or they'll point it at somebody else. They'll hand it to them like this instead of having that muzzle down. Or they'll sweep their feet when they're passing that gun around. But the other rule is you never want to have your finger on the trigger until your sights are on target and you've made that mental decision that you're going to fire, and then you pull that trigger. And you can leave the finger on the trigger while you're shooting until your gun is either empty or you're done shooting, and you need to take more than an 8-second pause and come off of the trigger. The other rule is you always want to assume that a gun is loaded until you competently prove that it's not, and you don't want to load guns until you're ready to use them. So if you were storing a handgun, you would want to store it unloaded. If you're carrying it for concealed carry, it's available for immediate use, you can have that gun loaded. And then the other rule is know your target and what's beyond. Okay. So if you follow those 4 rules of gun safety, you won't have a problem. But these gun rules, I have a very healthy respect for them and for guns, because being around guns for most of my life, I know how easy it is to have a discharge. There are careless that know the rules. Guys like me, if I was to have an accidental discharge, it would be careless because I knew what the rules were, but I skipped one of those rules, handling that gun. And the ignorant ones are children or maybe even adults that buy a handgun and they don't have the proper training and there's a discharge. But both of those are dangerous. One thing that students rarely do, gun owners, that I found, is they rarely will read their owner's manual. They'll call me up to take a pistol class and I'll say, have you read your owner's manual? And they've had this gun for years and they said, no. Well, read your owner's manual before you come to class and be familiar with the functionality with it, how to field strip it for cleaning. Be familiar with that before you come to your class. This is an owner's manual from a Glock, just to show you. I mean, you know, it's a very informative manual. It's got all these pictures. It shows you how to load and unload. It shows you how to clean and maintain the guns, how to field strip them. Just read your owner's manual. It doesn't take that long. This is something that was very curious. It was a good customer safety awareness form to be filled out at the time of sale. I've never had a gun dealer do this, but they go down and they check box. These boxes are supposed to be checked that you understand all of the different safety rules and things like that. So read your owner's manual. Be familiar with the gun safety rules. And you know, it's always a good idea to take a class from a competent instructor. And when you are taking a class from a gun, when you're taking a class from a firearms instructor, you want to take one that does not allow you to slide on safety. I understand it might be easier to take the shortcuts with instructors, and you know, for instructors to want to be somebody's friend, to have a lifelong customer, but that's not going to serve the student well if they are unsafe with a gun and they were issued a certificate. And it's not good for the instructor because students can hurt themselves if they have this false belief that they're being safe with a gun when they're not. And I want to be everybody's friend as an instructor, but anybody that's taken a class from me and that has earned a certificate, that is something to be proud of, because the NRA has very strict safety standards. If the courses are being taught right, if a student is being unsafe with a gun after several reminders, and they do that on the range, which is even worse, and it's going to be the instructor's discretion how many reminders they are going to give that person, depending on what they're doing on the range. A certificate should not be issued. And usually students will get that at the range, but occasionally we have to have people come back. And for example, there was a woman that was a school safety and security director, and she's considering being a guardian for a school, and she could shoot okay, but she just couldn't remember to keep her finger off that trigger when she was done training. And I've seen this with you know, elderly. A lot of times that's a little difficult. Everybody's got a right to own and know how to use a gun, but we just want to make sure that before we're issuing certificates that they're being safe with the gun. So, hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching.